Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a presentation and conversation with Dr. Maddisen Krown on our topic, the role of conscious leadership in driving business results. You're welcome to put comments or questions into the chat feature at any time. And if you're so inclined, please let us know where you're joining us from today. And just to mix it up a bit, if there's something in particular that you're hoping to get out of today's session, please feel free to put that in the chat as well. We hopefully will get to whatever anybody is looking for today. Recording of this webcast will be available in the next couple of days. We expect it to be about 45 to 60 minutes long, and it will be available on the Clarity Consultants website and also on Clarity Consultants YouTube channel. I am your host, Brenda McNabb, VP of Service and Development at Clarity Consultants, where over the past 30 years, it has been our sole focus to provide outstanding learning and development talent to many of the world's most successful organizations. And with that, I would like to welcome our guest today, Dr. Maddisen Krown. Hi, Dr. Maddisen,
Brenda.
welcome.
Hi.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you. It's great to see you, Brenda. Thank you so much for inviting me to be your guest.
You're so welcome, and we're so glad to have you here. And you asked me, when did we first start working together? And when I looked back, it was 2008, believe it or not. So that's a long time. And over the years, you have performed some great projects for our clients, including project management and in learning and development and instructional design and development for technical training for SAP, for example, to writing policy and procedures and advocacy documents for the developmentally disabled community in Southern California. And the one that stands out the most for me, for some reason, is when you did live role plays with other actors on conflict resolution for a Global 500 financial services client. Do you remember that?
Yes, that was really fun.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really great. So do you mind, before we get into the presentation, just giving us a little bit background on your journey and how you became an expert in learning and development, in particular leadership development, and how you became interested and passionate about conscious leadership?
Yes, I would love to. And I want to welcome everybody who's joining here today as well. So a little background for approximately 15 years, I've been working as an executive leadership coach and trainer with a strong focus on what I call conscious leadership, which is what we're here to explore today, specifically the role of conscious leadership in driving business results. First, I want to share a brief history of my L&D career and how that led to me becoming an executive leadership coach. So learning and development, L&D, has been my passion since the mid-'80s, which is when I transformed my BS in computer science and technical writing into a technical writing and training career. I quickly discovered how much I enjoy developing training and also especially supporting and watching others learn and witnessing those aha learning moments. And I have to say that I experienced a lot of those back when people were legal secretaries that I was working with were moving from typewriters to computers.
Back in the day.
Yes, back in the day. So from there, I continued my L&D career in tech writing and training through the 80s and the 90s, working with several great companies for hardware training, so, popular software training programs, just growing my skill sets and growing professionally. Now, my L&D leadership career launched in the early 2000s after working for several years in Germany for SAP, which, as many of you may know, is one of the largest global ERP enterprise resource planning vendors. So I started there in early 1996, moving to Germany from Florida. And a fun fact that I like to share is that SAP hired me as their American English technical writer, not to be confused with their British English technical writer, who I shared an office with.
Oh my! So you were the sole person doing that at that
Yes,
point.
I
Oh
was.
my
And I also learned German while I was there, and I used to go hang out with the tech team and help them translate the interfaces from German to English. So it was a great experience.
Very
I
impressive.
felt very fortunate. Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I returned to the States, I was quickly scooped up by a few large corporations, mostly in California, that were implementing SAP for the first time, specifically to lead their L&D initiatives. I mean, it was called training and development back then, but
Yeah.
right, we know what it is. And so I was leading L&D teams ranging in size from 10 to 40 team members,
Well, that's
training
a lot.
developers. Yes, it was a lot. And I mean, I had such great respect for these team members who were doing it. They were developing and facilitating. The scope of these implementations, Brenda, were massive. But what I took away from that was that I very much enjoyed leading teams. So what inspired me to change from leading teams to becoming an executive leadership coach? Well, it was clear that I was passionate about learning and development and leading L&D teams. However, I didn't align with how often I witnessed leaders, especially the very senior leaders, consciously and unconsciously regarding their people solely as a means to an end, meaning like with the sole focus on bottom line financials and profits. I regard people as the bottom line, and corporations couldn't exist or succeed without people, including with AI. We couldn't succeed without people. So as
Yeah.
a result, right, I decided, because I know that's coming up a lot now. As a result, I
Yes.
decided to become an executive leadership coach, to work directly with leaders one-on-one and in small groups, to coach them in becoming more conscious about the success and the well-being of their folks. And in doing so, just cultivating healthier work cultures with better business results.
Wow, that's outstanding. And I just want to give you a little bit of a plug here. I know you're not expecting this, but just some stats on Madison here. I mean, it's football starting, so we need to have stats, right? For those of us who are crazy about that. But you have delivered over 2,000 hours of leadership coaching to over 300 leaders, and your net promoter score is 9.42, which is amazing. So we're so glad to have your perspective here today. And I'm going to look to get some questions coming your way, but please feel free to dive into. I know you have some slides today, and
Yeah.
we'll get going. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Brendan. You can interrupt me anytime.
Okay.
Okay. So what is conscious leadership today? While not attributed to a single person, the concept of conscious leadership as we know it today has been mainly associated with Jim Dethmer and Diana Chapman, the co-founders of the Conscious Leadership Group, and John Mackey, the co-founder and former CEO of Whole Foods Market.
Ah,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
Yeah, he co-authored a book in 2014, and then also in 2020, Conscious Leadership, Elevating Humanity Through Business.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Now, sometimes some will ask about how this compares to servant leadership, which was brought to us by Robert K. Greenleaf, right? I'd say conscious leadership expands on strategic leadership, which is primarily about serving and developing the people, whereas conscious leadership also includes a focus on strategic thinking and overall future vision setting, and the organization's overall health and impact.
Wow. And I know you have a visual that kind of helps us to wrap our minds around that. It's certainly a broader leadership approach for sure.
Yes, yes. But again, I mean, I've worked with servant leaders, and I'm so grateful, to what they've been doing for many years. Now, currently there are sources out there, a number of sources focused on different versions of conscious leadership. However, they mostly tend to be based on very similar corporate principles. So in our first slide, what I want to do is take a closer look at conscious leadership as it relates to leading self, leading others, and leading the organization. Okay, so conscious leadership, what is it? it's a holistic approach that looks at everyone as a leader. It involves being conscious, being aware, right? Conscious,
Yeah.
being aware of leading self, leading others, and leading the organization. All levels of leadership, including individual contributors, are encouraged to be active in their self-leadership. And this cultivates in leading self, right? And then we can actually go to the next slide. Oh, let's go back one slide, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I had an extra one in there, I took it out. Okay, so leading self, right? All levels of leadership, including individual contributors, are aware of leading self. Leading others, all levels of leadership, let's say from team leads up to C-suites, are aware of leading others. And then all levels of leadership from team leads to C-suites are aware of leading the organization. However, their responsibility and engagement increases as we move up from team leads to C-suites, who are most influential here. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it reminds me of a lot of the software that's been developed for managing employees, where their individual goals are related to the goal of the C-suite, the goals of the C-suite. How do your actions trickle down in a measurable way, as is charted by, we've had, here at Clarity, we've had this kind of software for a number of years. So yeah, it's connecting everybody to the overall goals of the organization.
Exactly, including individual contributors, which is, I think, such a, a great idea.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And then on the next slide, we'll just do one from John Mackey, right? Conscious leaders are self-aware, committed to personal growth, and have a deep sense of purpose and integrity that guides their decisions and actions. And that really says a lot about it. So let's start diving more into each of these areas. If we look at the next slide. Okay, so leading self. And I have to expand my screen here a little bit. Hold on. Great. Okay, so leading self. Self-awareness and emotional intelligence, EI. EQ is actually a measurement of EI.
Thank you.
Growth, you're welcome, I know.
Yeah, everybody's like,
I've
isn't
had
it
that mixed
EQ?
up for a long time. So self-awareness and emotional intelligence, growth mindset, which is so powerful, and purpose and ownership. And let me dive into that a little bit. So self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Self-leaders practice ongoing introspection to understand and manage their emotions, values, motivations, and biases. And this self-knowledge allows them to manage their emotions and act with integrity. Growth mindset. Self-leaders believe in their power to reframe challenges as growth opportunities and to focus on solutions. This is a major theme in the coaching that I do with leaders, and it's very empowering. We can talk a little bit more about that.
Look forward to it,
yeah, and purpose and ownership. Self-leaders are purpose-driven, take 100% responsibility for their thoughts and actions. And
yay.
Yay,
Yeah.
right? And I just sort of putting it out there to everybody. If you think about a word that is used all the time in business, accountability, how does this relate or compare? Or, how might this be another way of reframing that? Any
And
ideas?
the word has become almost ominous, but
Yes.
Everything changes so quickly in modern times that I think that word is on its way out and will be replaced by something else. Accountability, it sort of has this sound to it. But yeah, it is what it's about. But what stands out to me here is the introspection, and then having some sort of a the values. So it does come down to corporations setting their values and really emphasizing that for individuals, so they have something to base this on.
Yes. And this is really related to culture as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And with accountability, it's almost become a sort of a punitive word.
Yeah.
And not that it's not like a swear word, we can say it in coaching if it
Yeah.
comes up, but I like to use ownership.
Ah, yeah. Positive sound.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. And well, this is a quote on leading others. I'll just pop that in quickly. So the role of a conscious leader is to inspire and empower others to become the best version of themselves and create a positive impact in the world. Yes, that's
To
you
which
want
everyone says, how do you do that? I mean, having been a leader and having experienced a lot of different leaders, because I was looking at this and thinking, wow. So hopefully we get the roadmap to how one would go in that direction there. So
Yes. Well, and I've had very positive results in my coaching.
nice.
So let's move into the next so we can take a little deeper dive here into leading others. Next slide. Okay, so let's dive in here a little bit. What is the main focus of leading others? I'll read them out first and then we can dive in a little bit. So empathy and compassion, and there is a difference. Integrity and candor, transparency and psychological safety.
Mhm.
Conscious leaders are attuned to the emotions and needs of others, cultivating respectful relationships through genuine care and compassion. Integrity and candor. Conscious leaders align their words and actions with their core values. They speak their truth directly and respectfully to people rather than gossiping. That's pretty powerful. And then transparency and psychological safety. Transparency has just become, more and more, present. And I'm so thankful for that, right? Because it's not so much about ego and protecting information, when it comes to leaders. So conscious leaders use best judgment to share important information and decisions that may impact others.
I'm just
Um,
going to throw in a comment about transparency because I feel that, if someone's sitting in a senior leadership position and the world is changing, like AI is very disruptive, right? So there's a lot of decisions being made. Can transparency be as simple as saying, we are working this out at the highest levels and we will get back to you, and just acknowledging that something is going on down there. It's not like, all the frontline workers are on the first floor dealing with what the reality of what a company does, and then you've got people on the 20th floor. Anything, a breadcrumb, could that be transparency? Because they can't always tell us exactly what's going on.
Yes, that is a form of transparency. It's acknowledging, because this comes up often with my coaching, especially, with the layoffs and acquisitions and AI and all of this
Yeah.
stuff that's happening. And so it's really about just what you said, the leadership acknowledging what others may know or sense, because rumors are, are spreading.
Yes.
So just even be getting public about that with the organization and just saying, okay, we understand what you're sensing, what you're hearing. But please, as soon as we have more information, we are going to share it. And that has to come all the way down from senior, the C-suites down to with every level of leadership, informing their teams. Because it
Communication.
communicates, and this is conscious leadership, right? To me, conscious leadership is it's conscious and it's caring. And
Yeah.
and that supports a healthy culture.
Yeah, which requires you to put yourself in the shoes of other people, which is empathy at its core. We do have some questions coming in. I want Kathy to know that I've got your question. We will ask that at the right juncture here, but it's a great question. So keeping track of that.
Okay. Yes. Oh, great. Thank you. I see that. Let's see. Okay. And then I think that was it for that slide. Yeah, it's just that these are great points. And then, okay, quickly, I'll read these to you. You just listen and take it in. Conscious leader is not just a personal philosophy. This is about leading the organization, but also a practical approach to business that can help organizations thrive in a rapidly changing world.
Mhm.
By focusing on the long-term impact of their decisions, conscious leaders are able to build resilient, adaptive organizations that can navigate complex challenges and create meaningful change. And when you have a healthy culture, this is more possible. We can go to the next slide, please. Thanks. Now, leading the organization. So the three main bullets here: purpose-driven and win-for-all solutions, strategic without losing sight of the tactical. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
really, that comes up so often. And leading by example culture, right? So purpose-driven, conscious leaders are motivated by a purpose that transcends personal gain, cultivating outcomes that benefit employees, customers, the organization, and even out to society as a whole. And that's why it's really called conscious leadership.
I just want to make a comment here that, when somebody is doing this for real, you can feel it. When they're manufacturing, that's the other thing. So I would imagine with your coaching that you're doing some actual safe rewiring, because you can tell when it's sincere and when it's not. So it must be hard for
Absolutely.
some people to make these kinds of changes, but communicating at all is the best way
Right.
to start, I would say. So thank you.
Well, and this comes up often also. And, it's kind of tricky. No, it's not tricky. It's actually, what I like about coaching is that I mainly coach managers, directors, VPs, and senior managers. I can coach senior leaders, but my focus, and actually that's where I think some of this is needed the most, right? Because they have to be walking the talk in order for this to work. But also when I'm working with a new manager or even a senior manager or a director, this is the kind of stuff we're going over in our coachings, in our coaching sessions. So I'm looking to them to, bring this up as they move up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was looking at that and society as a whole, and I just want to ask you, not to get into a whole different direction, but you've been doing this for 15 years. Did that and society as a whole just come up more with the introduction of generations for whom this is on the top of their list? Is that
I
more
Well, I
recent
think so.
or?
I do think it's more recent. I mean, we've been thinking about it forever, but this is what I appreciate about conscious leadership is that we're saying it now,
Yeah.
I mean, this could be a long journey, right? But one leader at a time. And
Yeah.
I am uplifted and inspired by the leaders I work with. So, because friends will go, oh, it must be so hard working with these people. And I'm like, nope, not at all. For the most part, I find that they're really open to like learning growth mindset and, learning these skills and becoming more like this because it just makes people happier,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, we'll talk about that maybe a little bit, but habits are neural pathways, right? And that's neuroplasticity. So the more we start thinking and acting in this way, the more of a habit that will be. And the old habits, neural pathways, they atrophy if you don't keep thinking those thoughts. So that's very hopeful.
Yeah. Very hopeful.
Do you want to pop to the next slide? Okay, and so conscious leadership drives business results. And I like this quote by Kay Campbell. Let's define success as leading collaborative teams of people who are engaged because they feel valued in every way. Why does this matter? Because it naturally leads to higher productivity, more effective work products, which leads to increased worker and client retention and new business, which generates more revenue and higher profit margins. So conscious leadership does drive business results.
Absolutely. There it is, right there. Well said. Go, Kate.
Yeah, so let's keep, okay. So for me, what I like to say is treating people as the bottom line directly supports the business bottom line. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful to all of these companies who are bringing in leadership coaches, because it's making this a reality.
Yeah. Yes. And we've seen a major onslaught with that. I would say over the past 5 years. Maybe part of that being the accessibility to it, the affordability. I have so many friends that have it's a perk, it's a company perk, and it's one of these companies that do it, But I really kind of wonder how this works when creating a training program, because coaching is one thing that's an aspect of an overall employee development effort, right? Are there certain, I mean, are you seeing that conscious leadership specifically is being rolled out at a lot of large companies and it's being called conscious leadership?
No, it's not being called conscious leadership. I know that it's conscious leadership. But as far as, so no, it's not necessarily, although this terminology is being, used more.
Mhm.
It's just really more about, executive leadership coaching. And then in one of the organizations, and to what you said too, Brenda, I remember like 10 years ago when I would have leaders as coaching clients, the first thing they would say is, what did I do wrong? Why am I here? And that's
Yeah.
changed a lot.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
more like a compliment. We see the
it is.
potential in you,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the confidentiality of it too, just being able
Yes.
to have a space where you're not at the dinner table, by the way,
Well,
or
right.
with your friends after a couple of beer. You know what I mean? It's like it's a professional setting.
Yeah.
This is what I'm seeing. Is I was for a period of time I was a leader, and it is such a different existence. And I see it around me, and I sometimes I
Mm.
wonder like why people want this, And I think it's okay for leaders to have that, and which for me, I know that we're going to talk a little bit about that leaders can be across a spectrum of you know, interpersonal proclivities, extroverts, introverts, detail oriented, and things like this. So we'll get into that. But it was really, I found it to be really difficult, and I have to say that the one thing that surprised me the most about it was how much people ask you for constantly, and which is great. I feel like I'm a giving person, but it I thought it was about telling people, what to do, leading them and being decisive. And I had come out of the environmental industry, which I was in for almost 15 years, where I'd be out on these sites where we were digging up contaminated soil and putting in
Wow.
wells and tunneling under I mean, I had so many great experiences, but I had this sort of like a small army of people I was responsible for their safety.
Mm.
And I can tell you, I came out of that experience, those many experiences with, and maybe it was because I was working with truckers and drillers and people like this, that they just want you to make a decision. Like, there's no, I'm highly collaborative, but I just remember put those hands on the hips, point, and just say, put it there. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting. So when I came into other more professional management roles, it was really all about slowing down, collaboration, everything. Sorry, kind of went off in a crazy direction there,
I
but
had no idea about that part of your career.
yeah, that was
That
fun.
sounds really interesting. But you also mentioned training, like how does this translate?
Yeah.
And again, in most cases, when I'm not calling this conscious leadership with everybody, but that's what it is dear to my heart to call it that. But I also work with other coaches, and one organization that I've worked with is that we develop training that that enforces this, that reinforces all of these
Mhm.
principles that we're talking about. So training, I mean, we can easily reinforce this with training, and yeah, and so it's totally possible to create training that kind of that focuses on developing these types of skills.
I wonder how it would differ. Do you do a lot more role plays? Do you look at a lot of videos, sort of before and after? And then how does that also tie into leading the organization? Because for people to scope out and, I mean, they're already fielding, like so many questions from the people they're leading, decisions. How do I do this? I'm having this challenge here, and then they're asked
Mhm.
to what, like, go take 30 minutes a day in meditation or something like that. How do I lead the organization as well,
Well,
so
we
I'm
can,
just
I mean,
wondering.
yes, no, I'll mention that too, but we call it balcony time, and that's not my invention, but for leaders to schedule strategic thinking time, like 30 minutes every week. And I mean,
Oh,
and it happens because they have to put it on their calendars. And it's
yes.
not, I mean, I had a NASA client who was an engineer, and I told him about balcony time. And when we had our session, like 2 weeks later, he was like, I schedule 3 hours of balcony time every Friday. And it's great. And I was like, what, what are you designing rockets? I mean, what are you doing? But, so it tends to be a great habit, and it's giving yourself time, to get that higher strategic view. And as far as the training goes, it's normally, some slides, but mostly the instructor is presenting frameworks. We go into breakouts, they practice. Then oftentimes maybe there will be some group coaching follow-ups to answer questions to make sure that folks are practicing and doing well. Does that answer that question? Because I mean, there are definitely ways to do this.
Yeah, no, that does. That's great. That's great. And maybe we can just well, I'll hang off. Excuse me. I will hang on with before asking some other questions we might see here. But until you finish up here. So
Yeah, well, we can move on to the next slide. We were just kind of talking about this, right?
yeah, yep.
So what's the difference between pure coaching and directed coaching? Many of you probably get this, right? Just from what I've been talking about. But, pure coaching emphasizes asking questions over giving answers or advice. So we say, we ask, don't tell. And the coach supports the client in finding their own answers, which also helps them to gain true ownership, build confidence, etc. And this really works. I mean, when I first started coaching, I was surprised and so happy when I was doing peer
Yeah.
coaching. Because if you ask the right types of questions, the philosophy with coaches is that everyone has the answers to their questions. And you get there through specific, by asking questions. Now,
Yeah.
directed coaching really just combines asking questions with more direct guidance and feedback, and especially with the pace of things, and how busy leaders are. It's just, and I will say, we can talk more about it if you want, but normally when I work through coaching organizations or go in, directed coaching is often launched with a 360 survey, which would be provided by the coaching organization,
Hmm.
or based on the client's predetermined goals. And then so the coach would, ask questions, supplement with reinforcing frameworks, learning materials, insights. And then with directed coaching too, there's always kind of a commitment that the client makes to, takeaways and timeframes that are mutually summarized. I mean, does that kind of give you an
Yeah, and
idea of what it is?
I'm actually, this might be a good time to talk about your academic background a little bit. Because I'm thinking, just I can imagine a peer coaching session, and I've heard about this as a therapeutic approach. So, what is your background again, if you don't mind sharing that with me?
Sure. Well, I've got the BS in computer science and technical writing.
Oh my.
Yeah, because I like tech. But then my master's is in counseling psychology. I also did an ICF certified program for coaches. And then my PhD is in professional coaching and human development. I also have finished a program at the Neuroscience Academy in Australia. And then not too long ago, I did a program at Harvard University on introverted leadership.
Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
I'm bringing all that in, plus my, my business leadership and my L&D background.
Well, I would love to talk about introverted leaders for at least a portion of our time today, but I'll let you continue on your
Oh,
trajectory here.
okay. Well, so let's look at the next slide. Oh, okay. Well,
There it is.
there it is. Um, okay, so I had the question of like, what are some of the common leadership challenges? And I am going to preface this with that what I've seen growth with, it's almost like the collective consciousness in the last 5 years, where I had a session with a client this week, and I was like, well, have you heard of the levels of listening? And she was like, oh yes, level 1 is this, level 2 is that, and level 3 is this. And I was like, oh, I better start boning up on more skills, right? So, but some of the common challenges that I encounter with leadership, all leadership levels, would be how to have difficult conversations,
Mhm.
a nice a structure for feedback, constructive and positive, career growth, the levels of listening, which I just have such great respect for levels of listening. The grow model, growth mindset, which is so important right now. Dance floor balcony. Yeah. And is there anything here any particular one
Yeah.
that we could start with?
Well, I would say, what do you find that you focus on at the beginning of these sessions? Are there two or three?
Mhm.
And then maybe describing dance floor balcony a little more.
Okay. Now, so typically when I consult through coaching organizations, right? We just to give you an idea of the structure, we normally start off with a customized 360, right? Survey where the client has been surveyed by manager, peers, direct reports if they have them, in a self-survey. And then in the first session, we usually review the survey result and focus in on areas for growth, right? And of course, I follow their lead when it comes to this. And even after the survey, they usually have an idea of, and they can also usually say, "Oh, Joe said that about me," and she said that about me, even though they're
Yeah,
anonymous, right?
right,
Um,
right.
and then we have 45-minute sessions together, bi-weekly or monthly, normally 6 to 12 sessions. And how this is direct, so that if let's say in the first session, I do like to talk about dance floor balcony and levels of listening. And so uh, let's see here. I just want to, because I have some good information here.
Yeah, take time.
Yeah. So in the first session, dance floor balcony is just the idea of dance floor is tactical. Balcony is
Mhm,
strategic. It's that simple, right? And I mean, this model was actually developed by Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky. It's as a metaphor for adaptive leadership,
mhm,
just illustrating the shift between, between the dance floor, the tactical place, and the balcony, mostly where leadership is on the strategic level. When just bringing this awareness to leaders at any level, especially at at new managers, really helps them, because oftentimes they're on, even the higher level leaders, they're on the dance floor because there's so much to do. And then
mhm,
they lose sight of kind of what the big picture is. So just by sharing this metaphor,
mhm.
most people, or a lot of the clients, will just have a big aha about that. Like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
right. Or if a manager wants to, grow in leadership, I'll say, well, how about you start scheduling 30 minutes of balcony time each week, so you can at
Mhm.
least start thinking and asking yourself questions about what you want your growth path to look like here at the organization.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, there's a lot of things that are challenging here. Uh, I guess difficult conversations. That's something we should cover because that does come up. I'm wondering if how often difficult conversations get pitched over the fence to the coach. Uh, because, what in between, caring about people and all that kind of stuff, but,
right.
wanting to give feedback, giving feedback, boy, those are two areas, those two things. Any
Yes,
comments on that?
yes. And difficult conversations, I mean, they usually put them off for as long as they can, and
Mhm.
then it just gets worse, right? That's normally what happens. So the book that I recommend for difficult conversations, because that's where the model is from that I used, is Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. Now, some of these words like fierce conversations and radical candor, when I first started hearing about this, I thought, oh, that sounds kind of harsh, but it's not. And she has a 7-step model for having difficult conversations.
Oh, wow.
And it's great. I mean, it's just, so we do it in the coaching session often, and we'll walk through the 7 steps together. Um, but it's just
Mm,
really, it gives, so, and they have a worksheet so they can kind of go back and they have to set some balcony time to, clarify the issue. What's the current impact? What's the impact on others? Um, what are the future implications? So there's a whole structure. And and then down to, so what's the ideal outcome and what would that look like? And then you get a chance to, scrape yourself off the floor of depression, because then when you start thinking about the ideal outcome, you've got dopamine, feel good hormones, running through your body, because you feel like you have, and then you have to, but with coaching, they have to commit to action. So I say, when are you going to have this conversation?
so
And
that
then
that commitment piece, what can you repeat the name of the book? I think it was Fierce Conversations,
yes, by Susan
Scott.
Scott. Hmm.
Fierce Conversations, Susan Scott,
Yeah,
and the 7-step program.
yeah, and there's probably stuff all over the internet on that.
Fascinating. Well, can we talk about introverted leadership? Is this a good moment to do that a little bit? I mean, since this is something in which you studied it in the Harvard program, like, what is there a percentage? I'm
Well,
thinking.
I can't give you percentages, but I can recommend that you read Susan Cain's book, um, and it's called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. This book is so powerful. Um, So, I mean, I out myself now in my sessions. I'm a natural introvert. And as a leader, it was challenging, because I didn't have the loudest voice in the room. And so that's why I did this program at Harvard, which was Introverts as Leaders, Quiet Power as a Leadership Strength. Susan Cain, by the way, she also has a TED Talk, everybody. So if you don't want to read it, if you don't want to read the book, Susan Cain's TED Talk is The Power of Introverts.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
yeah, so I do have, I'm amazed at how many leaders are more introverted. The C-suites tend to be, in the DISC model, they tend to be mostly high Ds, dominant drivers. Um, but they're, I mean, they're introverted leaders up there too. And then with introverted leaders, I sort of give them tips for how to manage, through these situations where they freeze up or they don't have a voice. And then also I like to use DISC with them, and strengths, the uh, Clifton Strengths Finders.
Well, and I know that I think we've got a slide on those. You have a slide on those. So, yeah,
Yes.
and I know
Um,
yeah,
yes. Do I have
that's the
time?
one I'm most curious about here. Familiar with the other two, but love to hear your thoughts on all of these assessment tools.
Okay. Now these are my favorite. They're not all of the assessment tools that are out there. Okay. I like disc. That was developed by William Moulton Marston. And that's just a way of understanding behavioral styles, improving communication, teamwork, leadership. And the disc, now there are several models of disc nowadays.
Mhm.
And the acronyms might be a little bit different, or the word. So in this case, this is dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness. And so what do I want to say about this? Well, first of all, I love using this with introverts because it also helps them. For example, if you're quieter, if you're a high C, if you're really just data focused and quiet, and your manager is a high dominant driver, then what I do is I have them, take the DISC assessment, get a DISC ebook, and then flex into their manager's style when they have the meeting. And it's very powerful. So it's a really great way to build relationships, strengthen relationships. And for folks here probably who know about this, I mean, organizationally, there are many companies who facilitate DISC in their companies. And
Mhm.
I like the words, like dominance, influence, steadiness, conscientiousness, but there's also a disc that goes by colors, like dominance is
Mhm.
red and that kind of thing. So people
Yeah.
walk around going, I'm a red, I'm a green,
Uh-huh.
I'm a
Yep.
yellow. So organizationally, find out if you have a license or a vendor for disc. Personally, you can take disc online. There are several free options out there now for
Mhm.
taking disc. Clifton Strengths, another great assessment. And this is, I would say, okay, this is organizationally, find out if you have a license or a vendor. If this is for personal use, then I recommend that if you get this book, but don't buy the used copy, buy the new copy. It's Strength Finders 2.0, Tom Rath. And I've seen two versions, one with him and one with, I think, Mr. Clifton on the cover. But buy a new version, because the new version has a card in the back, that you can, with a code, and you can go online and you can get your first 5 strengths at no cost. And then you have the book, which has a description of all of the strengths.
And
And
that's the 2.0 version of Strength Finders by him?
exactly. Yes.
Okay. What happened
Yes.
to Don Clifton? He's not on that cover anymore.
He's a,
There. I love
I don't
that.
know. I'm sorry.
We
Um,
need to bring back those drawings of the author.
yeah.
That's cute.
And I like these. So like I always have mine on hand, right?
Mhm.
Especially if I'm meeting with a client who I know, I keep talking about high Ds. I have like that much D. But if I know I'm having a meeting with a client who's a high D, I look at my strengths and I go, okay, you want to be activator, futuristic, and positivity. So it's a great way to, you can actually lean into your strengths as needed, and which is great at work.
What's an overview of the Clifton strengths? I mean, is it
Um, it
it's how to
increases,
leverage your strengths or
yes, it's increasing your self-awareness, and that, right, because um, when I found out what my strengths were, I was like, wow, this is impressive. Right? I mean, so
yeah.
it's really a great way of improving your own, the way you regard yourself and what your strengths are. It can improve engagement and performance, collaboration, right? When you know you're working with different strengths. Uh, Same thing with DISC, right? Sometimes you can sort of suss out blind spots. And like I was saying, it's just a great way to, you can also help you position yourself, like where you want to go and what you want to do next, and what area of the business, you'll be, more powerful in, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to get this question in because I know we're getting to, and thank you to the
Yes.
individuals who are putting info on these books in there at the request of one of our attendees. Here's one question that came over. Can you speak to how conscious leadership can be used by informal leaders? For example, working on a project team, and rather than a formal people leader, in a position, a person finds himself in a position of influence, rather than, being like the boss, so to speak. So
Right,
how
right.
would conscious leadership show up in that role without somehow being misinterpreted as somebody being, let's just say, having too much D? Um,
I don't know, too much D. Um, well, I mean, I'd love to ask that person what they think, what they think that would look like. But I'm just trying to picture that. I mean, if everybody in the group, if they're equals, is that what she was saying or he was saying?
you sort of, so you're leading project teams,
Oh,
perhaps
okay,
because we have a lot of consultants,
right.
rather than being in a formal people leadership role. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
you're the team lead,
Yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would say, study uh conscious leadership, grab, you're going to be able to they can access these slides, right?
Uh,
Afterwards.
Actually, we don't provide the slides, but
Oh, but the
they can
video.
they can rewatch the webcast.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And I would say just kind of, find out more about what it is and what the qualities were that we talked about. And then just actually start practicing that in how you are leading the team. You might even, some of my clients, when they learn a new framework, they let their team know, hey, I learned this new framework, on um, dance for a balcony.
yeah.
And here's what it is. Let's all start doing it. Do you know? So
Mhm.
you could also be sharing some of these ways of being with a group.
Yeah, sort of focus on success, because a lot of these projects, you have these teams of different people. You don't know them. You're just getting to
Mm-hmm.
know them. I think
Mm-hmm.
if there's my advice would be, yeah, to pay attention to a lot of these things. If you find yourself being designated as that leader for whatever reason, usually a combination of project management skills. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
that, being
Yeah.
able to read and sort of lead others that you don't know very well, and trying to figure out kind of what motivates them and how to approach them. It's very complicated for sure.
Right. But I mean, you could even have discussions about that. What leads you,
Mhm.
what motivates you,
Yes.
what kind of a leader, do you want to be? Or, well, because everybody's a self-leader. See, that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? And or even have everybody take disc.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
There's an idea.
that's really fun. And Deborah, so she also mentioned Radical Candor. That's another great book. And again, when I heard Radical Candor, I was like, oh, it sounds radical. Well, it's about, being direct and caring. And so there's a lot of power in that.
Outstanding. Well, not sure if anybody has more questions here. I know we're getting close to the end here, and this has been incredibly enlightening. And we're so glad to have you. Yeah, it seems like everybody was just like really, really good listeners here. And thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody who, is there anything
Yes.
else that you wanted to wrap up with
Well,
Madison, and then
I
we'll do
mean,
our
this is
extra?
can I just quickly say this is ironic, right? Because I'm supposed to be asking, not telling. And so, I've been a talking head, but I just wanted to share all this with you and really appreciate everybody who showed up. Yeah. Did you say any
Absolutely.
other questions?
Yeah. So one question, there will be a recording that you can access via the Clarity Consultants website or the Clarity Consultants YouTube channel. Usually is up by tomorrow, or day or two. So you can revisit that. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Madison, for your time and your intellect, and all your wonderful experience. It's been great to connect with
Thank
you. And
you.
I really appreciate everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining us
Yes.
today. And hopefully you got something out of this. I mean, we're moving the needle, right? So
Yes. We're moving the needle. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Brenda, so much.
fantastic. Thank you so much.